who are you? No, who are you? I don't want to know your name. I want to know who you really are. How would you answer that question? Some people would say, I'm a man, or I'm a woman. Some people will refer to their ethnicity or their race. I'm Filipino. I'm a Latino. I'm a Caucasian. I'm a Black American. Some people might even go so far as to describe their politics. I'm a conservative, liberal. I'm a Republican, Democrat. Some people identify themselves by the work that they do. I'm a doctor. I'm a construction worker. I'm a nurse. I'm a teacher. I'm a priest. Some people will identify themselves by the role they play in the family. I'm a husband or wife. I'm a mother or father. I'm single. I'm married. Some people would even use their religiosity, identify themselves by their faith. I'm Catholic. I'm a Muslim. I'm a Hindu. There are so many ways that we can describe who we are. And I suspect, you know this, that not one category, not one word is sufficient to describe us. We would have to use a lot of different adjectives and nouns and different kinds of categories to adequately define who we are. I find it interesting that when people ask Jesus, who are you? He never answered in conventional ways. You know, he never said, oh, I'm a Hebrew man. He never said, I'm a Jewish rabbi. He never said, I'm a carpenter's son. Or I'm a miracle worker. No. He certainly never said, I'm the Son of God, directly. But what did Jesus do? He used metaphors to describe himself. I am the light of the world. I am the bread of life. I am the good shepherd. And when Jesus used these kinds of metaphors to describe himself, he was suggesting that his identity is bound up in his purpose and his mission. Ultimately, by using metaphors, Jesus challenges people not to understand him intellectually by what's so obvious, but to understand him by faith, to go to the real purpose of his life. On this third Sunday of Advent, we hear from John the Baptist again, and this time it is John who's being asked, who are you? When people became aware of this strange guy dressed in camel hair and proclaiming, prepare the way of the Lord, and wandering around the desert eating grasshoppers and offering to baptize people in the Jordan River, they went out to see him. Probably many of them went out just because they were curious. And some of them said to him, who are you? And what's interesting is John doesn't tell them. He begins by telling them who he is not. He's not an apostle. He's not a disciple. Are you Elijah? No. Are you one of the prophets? No. Then they ask him the all-important question, are you the Messiah? Are you the Christ? And emphatically he says, I am not the Christ. And then after kind of deferring all of these proposed identities, to himself, he says this, I am the voice of one crying out in the desert, make straight the way of the Lord. John describes himself as a voice. And in doing so, like Jesus will do, John identifies himself by his purpose in life, to announce the coming of Christ. He is the voice calling attention not to himself, but to another person. John is the herald, the one who is making an important announcement. Christ has come. And John's whole existence is bound up in the purpose to make Christ known. So when John deflects questions about his earthly identity, he's offering himself as a vehicle for God's purpose. He assumes a posture of humility. Everything about him points to somebody else. If John had an ego, he could have said, well, I'm the great prophet called by God. Or you said, don't you know I'm John the Baptizer? I'm baptizing people in the Jordan River for the forgiveness of sins. He could have inflated himself by making himself out to be somebody. But instead he says, I am a voice. And then he will say, one coming after me, I am not worthy to untie his sandals. In 12 days, we will celebrate Christmas. And as we all know, Christmas is the observance of the birthday of Jesus. People around the world will celebrate that day. But not all who celebrate Christmas are sure of who Jesus is. It's my neighbor. Not everybody who celebrates Christmas is sure of the identity of Christ. To a lot of people, Jesus is viewed as another holy man, a teacher of wisdom, an historical figure who lived in the first century of Palestine, who was crucified for claiming he was the Messiah. To other people, Jesus is a religious reformer, like so many other religious reformers in history. To people, Jesus is certainly a teacher of wisdom, like so many other wise people in our human history. And all these descriptions about the identity of Christ are accurate to some degree, but none of them captures the entire truth of who Jesus is. So who really is this Jesus? For Christians, Jesus is the true Son of God. He's not simply a prophet or a teacher or a miracle worker. He is God in the flesh. He's the one God who has come into the world, who has revealed himself to us, his humanity, so that we can enter into relationship with the God who is eternal. Jesus is the God who actually suffered and died so that we can live forever. Jesus is the one who will come again to establish this eternal kingdom where real justice, love, and peace will be evident. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So if we nod our heads because we believe those things, then who are we? Really, who are we? Well, we can begin by saying what we are not. We're not simply Caucasian or Hispanic, or Black or Asian. We are not simply Americans. We're not simply men or women or whatever gender category people come up with today. We are more than the work we do. We are more than the role we fulfill in a family. We are something different. Like John, we are witnesses. Witnesses to the light. Being a witness to the light means that we are here to be a voice in the desert of the world. Like John, we are to announce that Christ is present as our God, that he is present among us now. In the first reading, we learned how to be a witness to the light, to bring good news to the poor by tending to their needs, by healing the brokenhearted, by offering comfort and support and prayer, by being an advocate for those who are unjustly treated, to give freedom to people who are held captive by the way we offer forgiveness and mercy. This is not simply a religious thing we are doing. It is who we are. That's what it means to be a witness to the light. Like John the Baptist, we are a voice in the desert of this world. We proclaim God is with us. We are a voice that announces God's incredible love for all people. It's our voice that makes Jesus known for who he is, our Savior and Redeemer. We may think sometimes our voices are inadequate or no one's listening to me anyway. But the fact is, our voice is the voice of Christ, speaking through us, speaking to a world that is in desperate need of hearing something good. We can't be afraid to use our voices to make God's love known. We cannot shy away from speaking the truth about who Christ is. Because in a world that is filled with noise and distraction, it is the voice of Christ that has to be heard. We're moving quickly towards Christmas. These would be good days to ask ourselves a question. Who am I? Who am I really? And we should not be afraid to answer our own question. I am the voice of one crying out in the desert, make straight the way of the Lord.